Welcome to our program. And in addition to our painting lessons, we're also going to start interviewing some local artists in our area to see how they come up with their creativity and how they paint. And so we're going to have them on art and imagination. Anything that you can imagine, you can draw. Let's go to the studio. Hi, come on in to the studio with Art and Imagination with me, Janna. So happy to have you with us today, and we're going to be working again on our vegetables here on this little table that we've started, and I've kind of painted around it and kind of made it a little bit darker and brightened up some spots and kind of smoothed out some spots that needed to be smoothed out, and adding our color to some of the other colors that we need. So I'm just going to kind of try to make this lemon a little bit bigger. Because it looks so small compared to the onion. So you're always going to be changing things that you're doing. So we'll get that started. And I got a little bit of light here in my brush where our onions also needs to be lightened up because the skin is coming off of it. So we have to have that light to compare with the dark, as you can see. We have the light here. We have to have the dark to different between to make it more 3D, I'll put it that way. And it's takes time, watercolor does, because you have to put on so many layers. And that's what makes it more difficult than like an acrylic or an oil. An oil, you can move around the doggone canvas as much as you want. And you can never make a mistake with oil. Oil, to me, is the easiest. And then acrylic dries so fast for some people, but I like that because we can move along a lot faster on any kind of a painting. When you work on commissions, you want that speed. But if your customer wants an oil, then you go to oil and have fun with the oil. I love oil, but then on the other side, it just takes so long to dry. And some people don't like that. I'm going to make this eggplant, because some of the skin is sometimes very dark. But on the shadow side, I'm going to make it a lot darker. And I'm going to pull it up the way that the roundness of the eggplant is on the bottom, where the shadows are coming up. So I'm going to be doing in a circle, kind of a circle from the edge. And then we'll smooth it out as we go along. But when this lemon over here dries, I'm going to be fixing it also. And I've left the light spots where the light is hitting the skin on the eggplant. And we're going to have a dark shadow underneath this leaf here. So we're going to pull it towards this side. And I'm kind of exaggerating because I want to take the color that I've got on there and smooth it around. We want to kind of, and as you can see, as the dark gets darker, it looks a lot better. So I'm going to clean my brush, kind of get rid of some of the water on it, and then I'm going to kind of smooth this out on the edges where we're going up over the hump of the eggplant. And we don't want to ferret out too much because we don't want to dim the color. And this is strictly dry brush work here. Because even though we've got a dark skin on this side, because it's the shadow side, down deep in between these pieces of vegetables, down in through there, it's going to be very dark to separate this eggplant compared to this onion and this lemon. So I'm going to start on this other side and get some really dark color going in between this onion and this light side over here, because the light is shining down this way, so this side of the eggplant's going to be really dark also, that's between there. So we'll put a little bit of black into that color of the purple, because we've got layers in there already. So I'm going to go in, and my canvas is wet, I got to remember that as I pull my finger across that onion there, because I was kind of smoothing things out before you got here. So my canvas is a little bit wet. And it's all right to have a jerky hand, as I have. So that's no excuse. Sometimes jerky hand is good. Now, as you can see, I'm going around. Now, I'm going to empty my brush out again and dry it to some extent. And I'm just going to go in there and pull some of this dark color up over where it's going to be a shadow. Now this is the way to get your fruit or whatever you're painting to come alive finally. And we haven't even begun to work on the background yet. But remember, the table was black, which was probably not a great idea, but I like the contrast of the black table. So I'm going to go down here, flare this out, smooth it out, pull some of that paint around. The main thing is we want to get this dark in here, where it's really super dark on the table. Keep making this onion smaller. So I'm going to need a little bit of water, more down here. And as you have seen in this series of watercolor of this vegetable painting, it takes a lot of time, and don't be hurried with your paintings at all. Of course, now if this was if we did this every day, it would be finished by now. But since we're only taping once a month, then it takes a little bit longer. So this artist is learning patience along with everybody else. So there we go. And now we have to make this dark as dark. I have to make it dark over here like this dark is what I'm trying to say, I guess. So I've got to go back and get in between here and get it darker than the eggplant. So I'm just dabbing that in there. And there's going to be a shadow on this side of the onion too. And we'll have to work on that lemon a little bit later because he was pretty wet. Now I'm going to clean my brush again. And now you can see this eggplant's really starting to pop up. And working on a canvas is a lot different than working on paper, watercolor paper. But I like working on a canvas. I have paper. All right. Now, we're going to have shadows over here on this squash on this side also, so we're going to have to put our shadows in there also. So let's do that. Put a little more dark in there. Get rid of the purple because we don't want purple. And purple is the shadows, the shadow color on most everything. So we got to go back down here, following our shadows everywhere. So we'll lay that paint in there. Clean out my brush. Now we don't want that hard line like that. We don't want to leave that like that. We want to spread that paint out a little bit so that it's not so harsh. So I'm just going to pull it out, dabbling at that side. And using some of this paint to pull down around this onion. Because where we want the most darkest is right up against the edge of that squash. And like I said, remember the table's black, so we can certainly use this paint out here. But we want to kind of float the water into this side here and smooth it out. I don't happen to have my mop brush with me today. It's in another bag that I demonstrate with, so I forgot to put it in this bag. So I'm trying to make it as smooth as possible with this brush. But see, that just kind of enhances that squash coming out. I want to keep it up next to there. So don't pull too much out from the side. And this is what I call a fun part of the painting, is kind of this detail work here. Okay. So we got to maybe make the end of this eggplant back here a little darker too. So let's enhance that a little bit better. My brush is splitting, which means that it's not a very expensive brush when it's splitting like that. So when you have those splits, find you another brush. I've put my brushes away out of my bag, but let's try something else here. People used to ask me as an artist, well, you just get to color all day. I said, yeah, that's true. I color all day. But you know, there's about 26 or 27 things that you got to think about as an artist, when you're painting something. So you got to know where the light's coming from and where the dark is at and the shadows. Didn't finish that shadow around this green end here. We'll spread some of that out. So the wonderful thing about watercolor is you can go back in there with some water and smooth out what you want to smooth, or float, whichever way you want to look at it. Floating is fun. Okay, that's looking better. Now, let's get to this green over here, this leaf. We need some work on him. And I'm going to start with some light green. Out here on the edges. And there again, I don't want it to be such a straight line. Straight lines are nice, but I like more jaggedy lines. Because that's the way, you know, everything doesn't grow straight. Especially these leaves on the eggplant, because they get sticky. They'll stick you when you're trying to take them off. In fact, as I remember now, I had some eggplant for dinner last night. After you have this setup here that you're going to paint, go ahead and eat it.
How's the time?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to let that dry a little bit, maybe just a few seconds. And then I'm going into some dark green, because I'm going to float this dark green in with this wet light green and make some interest in it. You know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder and also the painter. It's your painting, and you can make it any way you want to. But just have to pay attention to your lights and your darks. And I like to kind of mix this paint a little bit. Break that all green up. It's whatever that your eye desires. Not your heart, but your eye. Okay, we'll leave that for now. Going into some brown now, like a sienna. and just kind of darken up this center a little bit. Whoops, didn't darken it up very much. Go down in here into the darker color with the brown. There we go. That's better. This is the stem of the, where it was cut off. I watched a lady pick up in her basket an eggplant and had a really long stem on it. I thought she's going to have fun cutting that off. And then I'm going to go over here on this onion and put my dark edge back on that, where it was cut off. And we're going to have a little bit of dark edge over here on this skin. Well, that's too straight. Don't like that. So we're just going to kind of form him a little bit. This is so much fun. I love this part of doing the painting because I love doing detail. I'm going to kind of flare some of that out and leave some light in there too. You don't want it to be all dark. But the skins sometimes are more yellow gold. And I'm going to put some more yellow in this, or probably some, not so much yellow, but kind of a goldy color. Got a little bit of red in this one. And I kind of like that little splash. Let's do a little more on this side. Not too much. That might be a little bit too red, so let's go in and fade some of it out. Just by pulling color out. And the skin is so smooth, it's like thin, thin paper. So I'll let that dry a little bit. He's looking pretty good. Let's go try this next one over here. Because we've got the undercolor already under there. And because we know the color of the onions. And I'm going to pull it, pull some lines down to indicate that this onion is not flat, but it is round. We're going to do that all the way around. See, just a tiny bit of paint will give you that look. And we have a little bit of overflow from the eggplant, which will give us some more paint to work with. And it just combines in with the onion. Isn't that fancy? Who knew that you could do that? Get some more darker color, because this side will be dark over here. Along the eggplant and the lemon. Still pulling up, drying my brush a little bit. We want to float that edge because we don't want a thick edge. Or top, I should say. We want the edge to be dark, but not the top. I hope you're having as much fun as I am. But most of all, I hope you're learning something about watercolor and about how to do it. Takes patience. So if you don't have patience, you will learn patience as you paint watercolor, because it takes a while to get it done to your satisfaction. Okay. We'll continue to work on this as long as we're going to be working on it. So let's kind of work down here on this squash a little bit too. Put its dark side over there. And the end of it. We may put a stem on the other end of this squash. We gotta make him look round, so we're gonna push the paint up there. To how he grows. I can tell we're getting kind of close to closing the program for today, but I would like to thank you for coming to visit us. And we'll be here till the end of this painting. And then we're going to do some acrylic on the easel. So get ready and get your canvases all ready for the next time when we're going to be finishing this watercolor. And I thank you for coming and spending time with me today. So goodbye for now, and happy painting. And remember, art and imagination with Janna at the BCTV Community TV. Remember, anything that you can imagine, you can draw. So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.